Hello, I'm Soldier Boy. The world knows who I am. Why do I have to say it? I'm Soldier Boy. Did you know drugs and drug-related crime have become a nationwide problem? All across America, drugs are destroying people's lives. But you don't have to be a superhero to fight back. Because your superpower is just saying no. So when someone offers you drugs, you tell them Soldier Boy said taking drugs is not cool, and anyone who does is a loser. Remember, real heroes don't use drugs. But the cool thing to do is just say no. God, I sound like a jackass. Who approved this script?
Stan Edgar.
Get him on the phone. I'm not saying this shit. Finally. Is this hot? Iced! It's unprofessional! Let's go to the top. If taking drugs is uncool, I'm the most uncool motherfucker on the planet. You.
Actually, we're gonna need to go one more time.
No, we're not.
We really just need one more take.
No, that's a wrap. Okay? Great!
Welcome back, everyone. It's Charlie. They dropped a brand new Boys Gen V promo with Jensen Ackles, Soldier Boy, coming back. He will be part of the Gen V episode, so I'll explain what's going on. Obviously, a lot of jokes here about him doing PSAs like they forced Captain America to do in the Marvel Universe.
So, you got detention. You screwed up.
Soldier Boy is part of a larger group of like the main superheroes from The Boys that are going to show up on Gen V that'll help set up what's happening during The Boys Season 4. So we'll break it all down. If you're brand new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get all the episodes. They're actually dropping the first 3 episodes next week. I'll do a video for them after I finish my Ahsoka video, but then after that, all the Boys Gen V episodes will be weekly. There'll be 8 episodes total, just like the main series. It'll be interesting to see which of the 7 characters, the other major Boys characters, show up in each episode, because it does sound like most of them will be in the Gen V episodes. The main thing here with them bringing Jensen Ackles' Soldier Boy back is that he ended Season 3 being put back into cryostasis by Mallory, because in the universe of The Boys, some of the most powerful characters, like Homelander, Soldier Boy on the TV show at least, like Stormfront, nobody has been able to kill them. There are a couple exceptions to that, like Stormfront was able to kill herself. But like Stormfront during Season 2, at the beginning of Season 3 at least was a good example. They were able to hurt her so badly at the end of Season 2 that she went full Anakin Skywalker on Mustafar with no arms and legs, pretty much turned into a human charcoal briquette. But they still weren't able to actually kill her. She was the only one who was powerful enough to kill herself. Homelander probably could have done it too. So if she was that hard to kill, Homelander, even more powerful, would be even harder to kill. Now, yes, he can be killed, theoretically, but there's only one person on the planet who's able to do that in the comics, and on the TV show, they'll probably use the Ryan twist for that. They'll just say that because Ryan is his biological son, he got all of his powers, he is powerful enough to kill Homelander. Now in the comics, things were very different. The original version of Black Noir was a genetic clone of Homelander that Vought created to keep Homelander in check as a sort of failsafe. It was their way of creating a deterrent capable of having any effect on Homelander if he ever went off the rails and Vought lost control of him. So that's why in the comic book, Black Noir is always standing around where Homelander is. Like he's always keeping an eye on him just in case he goes off the rails. And all the terrible stuff that Homelander's accused of doing, like really, really terrible stuff, is actually done by Black Noir, who dresses up in Homelander's costume occasionally, because the comic book genetic clone of Homelander has already gone insane. Things went off the rails in the comic book way, way faster than they are on the TV show. On the TV show, though, their version of Black Noir is like a completely different character. He's not meant to be a genetic clone of Homelander. They've kind of given that role to Ryan as his biological son. If you haven't read the original Boys comic book, though, you can read all about that other version of Black Noir. It is crazy. In the original version, Homelander did father a child with Butcher's wife, Becca, but early in the story, like before the events of the actual comic book pickup, Butcher killed it right after it was born. That was meant to be the beginning of him creating the Boys team, going after Homelander and the other superheroes. So it was way, way more hardcore than the backstory that they went with on the TV show. Like, they toned it down big time, even though it does still seem pretty nuts. The other big change that the TV show made, though, was making Soldier Boy Homelander's genetic father. They also made the TV show Soldier Boy way more powerful than the comic book versions. There were two versions in the comics. Jensen Ackles' version was kind of like a combination of both of them, but the original version was meant to be the direct parody of Captain America's origin story, getting the super soldier serum. Soldier Boy was created by the United States as their first Compound V superhero to counter the Nazis creating their own Compound V superhero, Stormfront. So it's kind of like Red Skull and Captain America in the Marvel movies. There were a couple Easter eggs for this on the TV show, but in the comics, Soldier Boy was meant to be a terrible superhero. He didn't know how to use his powers, he wound up getting his whole squad killed. In comic book, Mallory was part of his squad in World War II. They moved the timeline up on the TV show version, and it was Vietnam for her. But Jensen Ackles' version of the character did come from World War II. The other big change was some twists behind the Aya Cash version of Stormfront, but basically the same vibe as the comic book version of the character. She was the first Compound V superhero. Vought was a Nazi scientist during World War II. She was his wife and created a Compound V to test it on her successfully. Then he was brought to the United States through Operation Paperclip and created Vought American, which is the company that Stan Edgar was running up to the events of Season 3. The original comic book Mallory killed that first Soldier Boy as revenge for getting their squad killed, but on the show they said that Jensen Ackles' version of the character just continued living through all the subsequent wars, and Vought kept using him trying to make money off of him because he was functionally immortal, like a couple of the other superheroes like Homelander, like Stormfront too. That was one of the things they didn't really get into during The Boys Season 3, kind of a missed opportunity. Like, what was the relationship back in the early days between Soldier Boy and Stormfront, especially after she came to the United States and started going by different superhero names? They would have had to have known each other. But the whole idea is that the Jensen Ackles version just continued serving for Vought, then trying to make money off of him until Stan Edgar came along and came up with the idea to create Homelander, a much more refined version of the Compound V formula given to basically the genetic material taken from their most powerful superhero of the day, which was Soldier Boy. Basically, it was Stan Edgar trying to create Superman. The whole idea is that when they created Homelander, though, they infused his fetus with way more Compound V that they would normally give to like a baby or young child. So it was like someone who was already very powerful given way more Compound V than anybody normally would be given. And on top of that, it was a refined version of the formula. That's the main reason why people like Queen Maeve, who are also like super powerful, she's one of the most powerful superheroes next to Homelander, isn't nearly as powerful as Homelander because she was just given way less Compound V. But even though Soldier Boy is not as powerful as Homelander or even Stormfront, he's still virtually unkillable by anyone but someone like Homelander. The only reason why he didn't kill him at the end of Season 3 was that lingering feelings he had for him as his father. Seemed like he was about to kill him for a hot second there, but his whole thing was that he craved real family, which he'd never had. He was raised like a test rat, basically in isolation, which is why he wound up being so messed up in the head, because they basically locked him in a room his entire life. That's how he developed that alternate persona that he was talking to in the mirror, who might actually be responsible for a lot of the really crazy stuff that he does. Even though technically it's him, like he's still doing it all, but it's just an alternate persona inside him that's manifesting when he does that. It's almost like a Moon Knight situation with the alternate personas like dissociative identity disorder. The difference though is that Moon Knight in the Marvel Universe usually isn't aware when he switches to another persona or when another one takes over. The only reason why the different versions were able to talk to each other was because they were in the afterlife. So the fact that it seems like Homelander is aware of his other persona seems like a completely different thing that was going on with Moon Knight. They haven't said exactly what Soldier Boy is going to be doing during the Boys Gen V episodes, but my assumption, because he's probably supposed to be in cryo in present day, is that they'll have archival footage of him doing weird or funny stuff, or those funny PSAs, the how-to videos, kind of like Captain America did in Spider-Man Homecoming. One of the other major new characters from the comics that they're introducing on Gen V will be Tek Knight. I've already done a couple of videos about him, so I'll link those at the end of this and down in the description below. He used to be part of the Payback team with Stormfront before Stormfront became part of the Boys, and originally, Tek Knight was supposed to become a member of the Boys, but that spot was given to Starlight in the events of Season 1. That was meant to be a result of all the weird mental problems that Tek Knight had. He can't stop trying to have sex with stuff. It winds up turning into a big plot point. Maybe we'll see a version of that in like The Boys Season 4 at some point. The whole idea though is that Tek Knight is meant to be a combination parody of Batman and Iron Man and DC and Marvel, but on the TV show, the showrunner said that they go more in a Batman direction just because he felt like it was more ripe for parody. That's why in the trailer it seems like he's at Godolphin University in his Bruce Wayne type of persona. When they announced that Jeffrey Dean Morgan was actually going to be in The Boys Season 4, like this is a behind-the-scenes picture of them filming The Boys Season 4, it seems like he's going to be a government agent working with Butcher or something like that. Originally, I hoped that he'd be their version of Tek Knight and they use it to just do some more jokes about his Batman v Superman character Thomas Wayne, because we almost got a version of Flashpoint Batman in the Flash movie too, and it was going to be his version of the character. There were like 10 different versions of the Flash movie with like a whole bunch of different directors across a bunch of different years of them trying to get that movie made. Now obviously the version we saw did not have a version of Thomas Wayne Batman, but originally he was the Flashpoint Batman, so it just would have made a lot more sense if he would have actually been in the movie instead. So when they announced that they were doing the Tek Knight character, everyone was like, oh my god, it's gotta be Jeffrey Dean Morgan, it would be so perfect. Doesn't hurt that Jeffrey Dean Morgan does so many messed up characters like Negan on the Walking Dead series. They didn't say when The Boys Season 4 is going to release. My assumption is it'll be sometime like late spring or early summer next year, maybe even around this time, just depending on what happens with everything being delayed. The whole idea with the Gen V episodes setting up The Boys Season 4 is that it's basically like a version of X-Men and Xavier's University. Like Clancy Brown is kind of like an evil version of Professor X. There is a version of X-Men in The Boys comics. They're called the G-Men. So that's why I say that Godolkin University is kind of like their version of the G-Men, basically. They originally pitched the show as sort of like a combination of Hunger Games meets the X-Men in the Marvel Universe. All the kids are competing to win a spot on the Seven. So what might wind up happening is that someone does wind up winning at the end of the season, and we see them on The Boys during Season 4, but they also use the season to set up larger plot lines that are going on in the background too, especially because Victoria Neumann is going to be on the Gen V episodes, and there's this whole plot of Vought trying to take over the White House basically, and she's basically the path for them to do that. Whatever Easter eggs or teasers we wind up seeing in episodes, of course I'll include those in my videos, so no worries. Be sure to enable alerts for my channel so you don't miss any of those. And if you have any special requests or questions about what's going on with The Boys stuff, just write them below in the comments. There's a bunch of big stuff coming up. My Ahsoka Episode 7 video will post next week after they release it. Click here for my Episode 7 trailer, and click here for that brand new Cal Kestis Easter egg during the recent Ahsoka episodes. Thank you so much for watching. Everyone stay safe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.